everyone, and welcome back to another edition of the Music Rooms podcast. And I'm here with Nigel today.
Woohoo!
So,
Hey everyone, how's it going?
Nigel, of course, does a lot of lessons for your music rooms, and I've been told by Rodney he's also a fantastic guitar player. So, Nigel, for anyone that might not know you, do you want to introduce yourself? And
Sure. Yeah, so I'm Nigel. I'm 30 years old. I've played guitar since I was 11. Um, that's about it. I've kind of played guitar a long time, and that's been a massive part of my identity and how people know me. And um, yeah, hopefully that's kind of enough to give people an idea of who I am.
well, that's good. We're getting a good variety of instruments already on this because Rodney obviously said he started with the drums. Jerry said he started wanting to do the piano or the keyboard. Now we've got a guitarist, so we're putting together a
Yeah,
band.
yeah, yeah.
So you said there was 11. You started the guitar. What
Yep.
kind of got you into that? Like, where did it all start for you?
Okay, so believe it or not, before I became a guitarist, I actually kind of wanted to be a drummer. That's what I really wanted. And for about 6 months before, I air drummed all the time. Didn't matter what we were doing, car on the way to school, hands in my pockets. I was drumming on myself. Didn't matter. I was always kind of drumming. And then this is a really, really strange one. The film 8 Mile came out. I don't know if you've
Yeah,
ever seen it,
great film.
right? And there's that guitar riff in it, that boom, 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 boom. And I just always thought it was really cool. And it immediately kind of made, I want to play that. It's not a difficult riff, but in my head, it was like, that would be so cool if I could do that. And I really, really wanted a guitar. And this was coming up to kind of Christmas. Of course, the only problem was I didn't tell anybody that I wanted a guitar. I just really wanted a guitar, and Christmas came and went, and there was no guitar. However, I used the money that I got for Christmas to just buy my first one. So I bought an acoustic in Trevor Key's music
Yeah.
back in the day in 2001 or 2002, and played that for about 6 months. Um, kind of just footed about in some stuff, and then eventually made the switch to electric. So yeah, that's kind of what got me started with it. Apart from that 8 Mile riff, I have no idea why I wanted to play guitar. It was just a notion that stuck.
It's a good riff. Famously, I remember it's one of those things that's stuck in my head because a political party in New Zealand ripped it off for their ad and ended up getting
Really?
sued by Eminem's people.
Wow, I
So
didn't know that.
there
That's
was like
interesting.
a solid year of TV ads where you always got that, and it's just like ingrained in my head.
That's pretty cool. I'm gonna have to look that up after and see. Could you see the ad on YouTube? Is that
Probably find it somewhere, like. But
I'll find it.
for you anyway, then when you got into the guitar, then was that did you want to be like a rock star then, or
Um, I don't know. To be honest, to this day, I'm still trying to work out my complicated mind as an 11-year-old. I have no idea what I was thinking, but um, yeah, I mean, I got into a lot of different things. Like I really loved playing. Like I don't know, around that age, you kind of. I don't know. You become a teenager and you become moody, and suddenly you're not happy anymore. You're like, into all this dark rock music, and um, I'm joking. But no, I started to listen to Nirvana. I started to listen
yeah,
to a band called Incubus that I really, really loved. They were
yeah,
like my favorite band ever. Um, who else did I listen to? Foo Fighters. As I got a wee bit older, there was maybe some slightly heavier stuff too, but that was kind of the bulk of it. So I liked playing Nirvana just because it was like, I learned all about power chords. Yeah, that was kind of the stuff that I was into really. There was no real no real reason to want to do any of that or direction. I didn't think, oh, I want to be a rock star. I didn't even think I want to be a guitar teacher. I just wanted to play it because I liked it and I thought it was cool. Um, and yeah, that was kind of it. There was very little. Um, there wasn't like another thing that I want to do this with it or whatever. So yeah.
And so, like, what kind of experience did you start getting? Like, were you playing from quite young, like performing, or did that come later? Or
So I didn't start gigging until I would consider it kind of later on. I mean, I would have done. I'm trying to think when my first gig would have been. Um, I do. Yeah, probably would have played my first gig in around. I think it was about 19. So, um, which when I think about it, actually, that's not that late on in my head at the time. I should have been gigging earlier, but no, started in and around 19. I've got a couple of cool kind of gigging stories. Um, One of the very first ones that I ever played was in Coleraine University to about 5 people. It was just my friends that had come along to support me, and no one else was there. And I really just played to my friends that night.
was that up at
Um,
is it the like Riverside bit of the?
yeah,
Because I'm
it was a
at
thing.
Coleraine, so
It was a thing. I don't know if it still exists. It was a thing called the listening post.
not sure
I
that
don't know if that still exists or
they might
not.
have renamed it
Um,
because they've got sort of that whole bit is they call it like the Riverside Theater, but there's like, you get the music, you get the stage, and there's like a cafe and all
yeah,
a part of it. Like it's a big,
yeah, yeah. Well, that's kind of where it was. It was like I was asked to play at it for a fundraiser, and um, there were other acts there that night too. But kind of what happened was the acts would bring people to support them, and
yeah,
then whenever that act was done, everyone just left. So by the time I played, which was last, which was kind of like that almost made it seem like I was the headliner. It
yeah.
really wasn't. Everyone had filtered out by that stage, and my like 5 friends were left. But it was really cool. I enjoyed it, and I was very nervous, but it was cool. Um, then I had another gig not long after that. It was actually one of the first times I would have actually encountered Rodney.
Yeah.
I was maybe about 20. Yeah, maybe in and around 20. It was in Portrush, and I can't remember the name of the place, but it's where the old cinema used to be in Portrush. I've forgotten the name of the place. Um, yeah, there was. Why was I even playing there? I really don't know. Some random gig, anyways. And I showed up with my acoustic guitar that didn't have a pickup, so you couldn't plug it in. And there was a guy there that tried to mic it, but then the mic wasn't really picking it up, and the louder he put it, the more it just started to feed back. And I ended up kind of asking somebody if I could borrow a guitar, and that turned out to be Rodney. So he had this like tag me, and he was like, yeah, sure, just take mine, whatever. He was all too cool for school, and just like, yeah, have my guitar, man, it's only like £600, whatever. So in my head that was whoa. So yeah, I played his guitar that night, and that was that was like my second gig. So
Uh,
yeah,
Probably a
that's
learning experience. That make sure you've got the
it
proper
was.
equipment and
That was a kind of immediate like, this is why you're supposed to have the right gear. Interesting as well, Rodney was in, what was the name of the thing he was in? He had like a duo at that stage or something. So this was
yeah.
pre-Cove days. They didn't exist or anything. So yeah, get the right gear.
All right, so we'll take a bit of a break from kind of your story, I guess there, and we're gonna take you to a desert island here. It's gonna be free of
Okay.
charge, but there's not a lot to
Okay.
do. So we're gonna
Okay.
get you one of those old like iPods where you load the songs onto them and all. And you're only allowed three is the only problem. So what would be your first choice?
Um, okay, so probably the first one I'm gonna pick is, so there's this song called Queen of California by John Mayer.
Okay.
Um, and I mean anyone that kind of knows me and knows the style of guitar that I play, it's heavily influenced by him, and that that kind of song for me would have been one of the first kind of like finger style songs that I ever learned to kind of play. But I love it. It's a great song. Um, came out in 2012. I still listen to it probably at least, I'm going to say at least twice a week. It just happened, so probably one of my favorite songs. And that whole album. Can I not take the album to the desert island? That would be so much better if I just did the whole album. Because it's kind of um, one of my favorite albums. It was a real. It came out around the time I decided I was really going to dig in with my guitar playing,
Yeah.
really kind of just try and take it up another level. And that was kind of one of the first songs that I tackled. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll have to check it out because John Mayer, he's one of those. I hear about him a lot, but I never really hear like his music. Like there's artists you hear about a lot, and you always hear like, oh, this is their new song, this is their new song, played on the radio,
Yeah.
and you sort of, even without following them, you know their music. But John Mayer, he's almost just escaped me, I think.
Yeah, like I'm trying to think when I would have came across him. 2007, 2008. He had this live album that came out called Where the Light Is, and that like I listened to it and it blew me away. Just everything about the guitar playing, and he done this thing in it where he opened the setup for the night where he done maybe 5 songs acoustic, and then the next set of songs he played as a blues trio. So just him, a bass player and a drummer, and then the last kind of section of it was full band, and it just like it really again just blew me away. So that would have been a big kind of point for me to kind of go that's the sort of guitar playing I want to be able to do. That's incredible.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I have to say,
worth checking out.
I'll have to check it out because I love a live album, like anything like Nirvana, the MTV Unplugged in New York, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Absolutely love. So I'll have to look. But so we were just talking there. Then you said you had started kind of gigging. What then led you doing that into now, where obviously you're doing the lessons, and you said you didn't really think you'd want to be a guitar teacher.
Yeah, it's a good question. So, I suppose I'll give you the story of how that all came to
Yeah,
be, how I came to be a guitar teacher. So I'll start at 6th year, lower sixth in school. Basically crashed out of it. I didn't do very well in
yeah,
6th year, um, and kind of just dropped out. I think I'd done just enough to get back to upper sixth, but there was a bit of confusion around whether or not I was supposed to be there, and I'd kind of made my mind up. I was like, do you know what? If I've done that badly, this isn't for me. This isn't
yeah,
going to work. So I dropped out and I went to Tech, and I studied media at Tech, and kind of whenever I'd finished that, like I was sort of left wondering, well, what now? What do I do now? Um,
yeah. It's
and
one of those kind of courses. There's not really like a direct. Okay, you do this and this is your job. It's kind of you take this and you
exactly, you
apply
don't.
it to something, and
Yeah, you at that stage, it wasn't really a case of okay, take your skills and just go and work for BBC now. That doesn't,
yeah,
you don't just that doesn't just happen. So, so I didn't really know what to do. And I'd spent um, a year kind of doing nothing. And it was an unintentional gap year, if you want to think of it that way. I didn't do anything. I was living in Port Stewart at the time, um, and my cousin was actually teaching guitar in Trevor Key's music in Ballymena.
yeah,
And I've been chatting to my cousin a bit, and I think he had kind of suggested, "Hey, they're opening a shop in Coleraine. Why don't you see if they need a guitar teacher?" And I thought, I can't do that. I'm not good enough to do that. No way. And um, they opened not long after that, and for whatever reason, I plucked up the courage to go in and just kind of say, "Look, hey, I play a bit of guitar. If you need a guitar teacher, I'd love to give it a go." And um, Trevor, the guy that worked there, like or guy that owned it,
yeah,
like um, he was brilliant. He kind of just said to me, "Well, play me something." So I sat down, played a couple of tunes, played my best at that stage, John Mayer guitar songs, and he kind of was like, "Okay, sure, we'll get back to you. And didn't hear anything for ages, but I dropped in probably every Saturday for about 3 months to pester them. Can I come and teach yet? Can I come and teach? And what they were doing was building up a list of students before,
Yeah.
before I could kind of come in. So I think eventually they just got fed up with me and was like, oh, right, okay, look, there's 7 students there or whatever. Just come in on Saturday and teach them whatever. Just stop bothering us. So yeah, that's kind of how it started. I started teaching from their shop in Coleraine. Um, on a Saturday, mostly group lessons, which kind of like, I don't know, I'd got myself psyched up for teaching like, teenagers
Yeah.
or, maybe kind of people in their 20s. And my first lesson was like this 7-year-old girl. I hadn't prepared for it. I had no idea. Didn't even know how you speak to kids then. Like I was, was maybe like, no what age I was. But yeah, that was.
You probably had to go through and censor your song list there.
Song list had to be censored. Probably at the stage that I was in life, my language had to be censored a little bit too. Yeah, so
So, how long would you have been teaching then with Trevor Keys?
I was teaching in Trevor Keys until it was either 2013 or 2014. I started in there around 2009. So in and around 2013, I think they closed. Um, and yeah, when like by that stage, I kind of felt like I'd got good at teaching. I had built up, I'd started out with like 7 students, and those 7 had become like 40 students. It was nuts. It was really really cool. I'd gone from working just a Saturday to working, maybe a couple of evenings through the week as well to be able to fit everyone in. Um, and whenever they closed, I kind of was forced to make the decision. Well, do I go and try and get a proper job, as someone once called it, and that really wound me up a little bit, or do I keep teaching these students, because I had this base of students, and I didn't really want to let them down or let go of that. So I decided I'll keep teaching them,
Yeah.
and um, so I kind of went out on my own name. I got myself a wee studio in Coleraine. I got some signage made up, some stuff. I got a Facebook page, and I set it up just as my own thing and called it Nigel Elliott Guitar Tuition. Really original name, but that's what I done. So yeah.
Okay. So it's sort of funny saying like the whole getting a proper job, because if you were teaching music in a school, everyone would probably say you had
Hmm.
a proper job, but you teach it in a
Yeah.
guitar shop, and oh, that's not a proper job. You're just
There's yeah, there's always kind of been this thing around kind of non-traditional instruments that
yeah,
isn't proper. That's always existed, even from whenever I was at school. So I'll tell you this: there was a time I was at school. Um, I will not say which school that it was I went to, but whenever I was at school, I was dying to bring in my guitar. I would have been about third year at this stage,
yeah,
dying to bring in my guitar because I understood the guitar, and we were sitting doing music with keyboards and pianos, and it made no sense to me, but guitars made sense to me. I knew what was going on with that, and I remember begging my teacher one day, please let me bring it in. Please, look, I can't do what we're doing on the keyboards, but I understand the guitar, so let me bring it in. And eventually, again, I think she just got fed up with me, and was like, whatever, bring your guitar in. So I was buzzing, brought my guitar in that day, ready to join the rest of the class and be able to, you know, do my part or bring whatever I had to the table. And she kind of just was like, yeah, oh, you've brought your guitar, cool. If you want to just go into the soundproof room over there, the rest of us will just continue out here in the classroom. Now, when you're like 14 or 15 or whatever age you are in third year, in my head, oh, lethal soundproof room class. I'll crank the amp and I'll play Nirvana. It's only now when I look back and I'm kind of like, that was not really a cool thing to do. Just
yeah.
like, oh, you go over there. You're not included because your instrument isn't, proper. So there has always been a thing around guitars, drums, and bass guitars, and um, yeah, there's where it's not really considered a proper instrument.
But then, I mean, you look at successful bands. How many successful bands are there that haven't had a guitar versus that haven't had a piano?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Um, so yeah, it's just something that's always existed. It's what I kind of like about the music rooms. We're trying to, and we always have been trying to kind of break that thing of
yeah,
like, you know, that whole like I don't know if it's a stigma or what you can call it, but it's you know what I mean. We've always been trying to change that and show that
yeah.
these are viable instruments to learn, very much so. Um, so yeah.
Okay, so we'll take another quick break from that there then, and if you're ready, do you want to give us your second desert island song?
Second desert island song. Okay, I've been thinking about this a little bit. So probably the second song that I'm going to choose is it's a song called Touch of Heaven. And it's by Bethel Music. So if you know me now, you'll know that I'm a Christian. Big part of my life is worship music. It's not just all about playing rock music and that kind of thing. It's about worship music. And Bethel, for me, they kind of have this cool, um, really cool kind of style of that. It's very modern. It's very not traditional,
Yeah,
and a lot of the time very guitar driven. Um, Now that actual song is actually by Hillsong, but Bethel have a really cool version of it, which I've loved and had on repeat for like I don't know months now. But yeah, I would probably choose something like that just because worship music is such a big part of my life. Um, it's a massive part of who I am. So that would be song number two.
I'm always glad to see 'cause I think it's taken longer over here compared to maybe other countries where that kind of more like Christian rock is developing a lot more, and I've never understood sometimes the stigma around it, like not wanting guitars in church, and
Yeah.
anything that encourages people to get involved and sing and I guess feel passionate about everything. Surely that's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Particularly in, do you know what? Particularly in Northern Ireland, um, I don't know. We're very tied to our tradition, so it's a little bit out there to have that kind of thing. But I love seeing it. I love seeing it kind of, um, I love seeing a shift here and things moving a little bit. So it's cool.
Yeah. Did I assume you know Aaron Blair that works with
Mm-hmm.
Rodney and that. So
Yeah.
I know there's a famous story of him and my dad played the guitars in church once, but
Okay.
they were expecting them to play along with like the normal old style hymns somehow,
Yeah.
and they were trying to do this, and they were looking at each other like, "How do we do this? This is like impossible."
Mm-hmm.
Like they're choir singing, and we're meant to play along, and they just mimicked it. They didn't actually play. I don't think their guitars were even plugged in, and they just pretended
Wow.
for the whole thing. And at the end, they said so many people came up to them and said that was such wonderful playing. That was so amazing.
That's brilliant. That is class.
Yeah. Um. So, would you do a lot of performing then with your church, or
Yeah, I mean, I definitely play quite a lot in church. Yeah, it's kind of just a big part of it. It was, I suppose, kind of for me. Whenever I kind of started going to church and whenever I became a Christian, something kind of changed in me about what I actually wanted to use my guitar for. What was the purpose behind it? Is it for teaching other people? Well, sure it is, but it can also be used for worship. It can also be used in that context. Um, and that was kind of again it was like a switch, like a light bulb moment in me where it was like, this is why I have this. So yeah, definitely quite a lot. At the minute I kind of been playing every week. um and it's a massive part of my life. So yeah.
And would you still do gigs on top, or has that kind of, yeah,
Yep, still kind of do kind of different gigs as well. Um, so yeah, I mean, obviously at the minute we're not allowed
yeah,
to gig right now. But yeah, the kind of gigging thing still there. Probably won't change for a while, providing we're allowed to get out and actually get gigging
yeah?
again. But yeah, it's
And
still kind of there.
have you mostly performed kind of locally, or because obviously we've had Rodney talking about going to Australia and everything, and Jerry who went to Canada, and
Those guys have a way cooler story
yeah,
than I do about where they've played. Um, so yeah, whenever probably just around the last year of me working on Trevor Keys, I got a message out of the blue from Rodney. So Rodney's, if you haven't picked up already, is a guy I've known for a long time, but
yeah,
we've kind of just known of each other. But I got this message from Rodney around the last kind of year that I was working on Trevor Keys to say that there was this local wedding band. Their guitarist was leaving. He was heading off to, I can't remember where he went. I think he went to Dubai or something to work for a year, something like that. So they had no guitarist. Would I be interested? And I yeah, that would be pretty cool. And I'd already played a wedding previous, which is a cool story we might come back to. um, but yeah, he asked me if I wanted to join this band, and yeah, kind of just got into it that way. Went and met the drummer. We talked a little bit. Realized we liked a lot of the same music. And he said, like, I mean, you realize it's a wedding band. We're not going to be playing
yeah.
John Mayer or all the stuff we like. And I was like, absolutely, of course. I know the score here. So, yeah, I kind of got into playing with them. That would have been 2000 and here did I start that? 2014, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, so from there, ended up after I'd played with them about a year, maybe not even, I started doing solo gigs as well, um, which was cool. It meant that I was getting both, or two slightly different experiences. It meant that I was getting to play with a band and do that thing, and then I was getting to go out just by myself with my acoustic guitar and maybe kind of play things or play songs that I was maybe kind of more wanting to play. Obviously, you still can't just do the most random, like obscure
Yeah.
songs. Occasionally, I'll slip one in if I'm thinking I can get away with this tonight. But yeah, that was, and there's more freedom on the acoustic as well to just kind of do your own thing. So
I've always
yeah.
thought sort of with wedding bands where obviously you lose kind of the control of you kind of have to play what like the bride or whatever wants to hear, but at the same
Mm-hmm.
time you're probably always guaranteed a good crowd because they're probably all in good spirits, oiled up.
For the most part, we've also done some gigs where it's literally 2 hours of us playing to a room of people just sitting looking at us who can't wait for you to leave. We've done that. We've definitely had weddings like that, but no, for the most part, it's always enjoyable. It's always good fun. Um, and that, I mean, that's kind of it. We wouldn't keep doing that if it wasn't enjoyable or we didn't
Yeah.
like it. So.
And so what was the story of your first wedding you played?
So first wedding I ever played, it was class. Um, so yeah, me and a friend were flying over to London. We were going to a concert, and just as the plane landed, I started to feel slightly unwell. It had been a bit turbulent, and my stomach was a bit kind of ropey. And I said to my friend, "Can we just wait for like 2 minutes here, just till this passes, or I'm gonna throw up around somebody while we're standing up." So we waited pretty much until the plane had everyone had kind of dispersed, and just as we stood up in our seats, there was a guy in the aisle that kind of let us out. I turned and looked up at him, and it turned out to be an old teacher of mine from school. It was a guy, Des Backington. He was probably my favourite teacher at school. I just was like, oh, I thought he was amazing. He was kind of there in the aisle and he let me out. And I was like, oh, Des, how are you? How's things? You keeping all right? Etc. Blah, blah, blah. What are you doing over here? And he was like, well, we're over to play a gig. And he said, look, do you know what? Funny I should bump into you because we're really stuck for a guitarist on Tuesday evening.
Yeah.
Would you be free? And I laughed. I was like, yeah, good one. He was like, no, seriously, like we are stuck. Like, could you help us out? I'd never played a wedding before. I'd never played that many songs in a row before. Um, so I kind of just decided, you know what, let's just say yes and see what happens. So I said, yeah, why not? Can you send me your set list? Um, and he sent me the set list that weekend. I was flying home I actually was flying home on the Tuesday morning, and the gig was on Tuesday night
Yeah.
in Belfast. It was at Belfast Castle. So I'd spent all weekend in London looking over this set list, just reading the chords, trying to get them into my head. Um, and then by, yeah, Tuesday, landed back home, went straight home, had a quick bite to eat, changed, threw all my gear in the car, and went to Belfast Castle and played my first ever wedding gig with my old ICT teacher. And that, yeah, at the end of the night, I was like, that's just so cool. So that was my first wedding that I ever played.
In some ways, it's maybe good something like that though that it kind of hits you out of nowhere because then you almost can't turn down the opportunity. It's kind of you're just pushed into it. You're playing a wedding Tuesday night.
Yeah, yeah. It was. Do you know what? It was a great scenario. I couldn't have ended up playing with a better group of people. Like they were so accommodating and so cool and laid back. And um, yeah, as you say, I almost didn't have a choice, and it was just that was a good thing, you know. So that kind of prepared me for what things would be like playing with the wedding band that I'm in now.
Yeah. And so then obviously you said, or when we last talking about you teaching in that, you had your own studio, yeah.
Yeah, so had my own little place in Coleraine for a couple of years, um, and it was great. I absolutely loved having that place. It was so cool, massive big space, um, like probably way bigger than I needed,
Yeah.
but it was cool. And it had this big corner window, um, so you kind of look out over. Well, it was Tesco's car park really in Coleraine, but there was a cool wee junction around it, and you could see the river a little bit. But it was cool. So that was kind of where I worked from. And it was just above Domino's in Coleraine as well. So if you know where that is, if you ever look
Yeah.
up big corner window, that was my studio. So there was many a Domino's bought from down there and brought upstairs. Like I loved it not just for the teaching. I just loved it because it was a space that I could go to and be by myself and play my guitar and know that the walls were concrete and thick and like no one could hear me if I made a mistake. It
Yeah.
took the pressure off of like having to, do anything perfectly. Because I even at home when I play, I can still be like that. I don't like to practice anything too out there in front of anyone for fear of them hearing me making a mess of it. So I really loved that. And there was so many nights as well at this stage in my life as well. I was kind of, to be brutally honest, I probably wasn't in the best place that I've ever been. Um, and I would have ended up like my sleeping pattern was a mess.
Yeah.
I was the kind of person that stayed up to 6 or 7 in the morning and then slept till like 2 or 3. And it was taking an effect on my mental health. But whenever I had this studio, it was kind of me starting to come out of that and it was great. But I loved going down there at ridiculous hours of the night. I loved landing in there at about 1 a.m. This is
Yeah.
no joke. 1 a.m. with my amplifier, my pedal board, and my guitar, ordering a Domino's, bringing it upstairs, setting up a backing track through the amp and blasting it out and practicing till, maybe 3 o'clock in the morning or 4, leaving the stuff there, hopping in the car, driving to McDonald's, getting a coffee, driving around the coast, watching the sun come up, and then going home and going to bed.
Yeah.
That was the kind of stuff that I used to do. Um, and I know that, like, being up that late at night, whilst it had an effect on my mental health, it was a fantastic space and time for me to sit and really just dig into my guitar playing and practice and feel no pressure, and kind of just work away at that. So that was probably why I loved having that place so much. It was really cool.
And then, so what happened with it then?
So basically, what happened was, try and put this all the right way. So basically, I met my wife. So my wife Ashley used to work at the music rooms, and we'd kind of started going out, and we'd been like, I don't know, just talking a bit about the music rooms, and I'd been telling her about the stuff I was doing, and eventually it kind of just reached a conclusion where we thought, well, do you know what, this. And I kind of knew of Rodney. I was like, I know Rodney really wants to be in Coleraine, but like, I'm here, and I think he didn't really want to step on my toes. And
Yeah.
I kind of approached him and said, look, do you fancy working together here? Like, I've got this base of students that could be something that you use to then start the music rooms in Coleraine. And that's kind of what we did. We just sort of merged things, and that kind of became the music rooms in Coleraine. That's what it started out of. It was kind of my business. So it became theirs, and yeah, that was kind of the start of it. So I had to give up that space because it wasn't really suitable for, you know, a music school that has more than one teacher, and
Yeah.
it wasn't suitable to have a shop. So we moved into a unit next door, and we were in there for about, I can't remember, in there for about a year, and then eventually we got a place in the town centre and moved further up in there.
Away
So
from
yeah,
Domino's.
that's kind of what happened. So
Away from Domino's, though, that's the kicker, probably.
what? Sorry, you cut out a little there. What was that?
Just away from Domino's, that was probably the hard.
That was the hard part. Away from Domino's, yes. I mean, it's still within walking distance, but it's too far now. You can't go up there just as easily.
Well, I guess it sounds like it was sort of a very natural, like, that was just the next step for you. That's what it needed to be for you rather than continuing your own lessons that way, I guess.
Totally, totally. And that was the thing that I talked to my wife about. Like, we had kind of said that I had kind of brought my thing as far as I could. I was teaching a certain number of students, and we kind of looked at it and was like, well, what more can I really do here? As a one-man band, there's only so much that I can do. All I can really do is try and take on more students. But with more students, what happens is you have less focus on the student.
Yeah.
Um, and that it was becoming kind of too much, so it was the next kind of natural step. And with the music rooms, we were able to offer the students, grades, other instruments, live playing opportunities as well. That was a big draw,
Yeah.
having the ability to kind of do that, going and playing in different places. And so yeah.
So then, is there much plans for you then in the future with trying to play more, or when things hopefully allow, or
Do you mean just in terms of like with the wedding band or the solo stuff, or?
just like anything when COVID obviously lets you play again? Is there?
Yeah, I mean, whenever it kind of lifts, I've got a calendar there there's gigs in there as far as 2023, so
No?
they'll have to be fulfilled. But yeah, I mean, I'm really looking forward to getting back out again and just kind of getting to playing. I think at the time, this is, I'm going to be very honest. At the time, whenever kind of COVID came around, I wouldn't say I'd burned out, but I was very close. So having a breather from playing guitar week in, week out, in fact, not even week in, but day in, day out, it was kind of a nice thing. It was good to slow down. It was good to kind of, and like, I mean, I was only recently married. I was only married about 6 months when COVID hit. It was nice to be able to say, let's just slow down, stay at home, spend some time together, um, and, be married the way we're meant to be, instead of like me out running like a couple of nights a week gigging and not really seeing each other that much. So yeah, it was a good thing, but I can't wait to get out again. I'm really looking forward to it, um, and just kind of getting back to it.
Okay, so before we finish up here, do you have a final song to take to your desert island?
A final song. I'm gonna be honest. I can't think of like one kind of definitive one, but I'm gonna just let me see for a second if I can pick one. Um, okay, I'm gonna pick this one because I'm gonna recommend that you listen to this and
Yeah.
check out the album and everything around it as well. It's a song called Slow Dancing in a Burning Room by John Mayer. And again, fantastic kind of guitar riff. It's one of those things, if you go on Instagram and you watch people testing out a Strat or an amp, it's usually what they play. It's kind of funny because it's nearly become a meme in itself that so many people just play this song. But
Yeah.
it's a phenomenal song. It's
I've
really, really cool.
I've definitely
Um,
heard
and again,
of that song. I can't think what it
yeah,
sounds like, but I've definitely heard of it. It is quite a big.
it's great. It's really, really good. That entire album is called Continuum. Um, if you want to kind of get an idea of what John Mayer's like, Continuum is probably the album to check out and go from there. Um, there's some phenomenal songs on there. It would have been the first album I listened to that really hooked me. Um, so definitely, yeah, let's go with that one.
All right. So if anyone listening has been interested, sorry, in your music or wants to check out the wedding band, is there anywhere they can find you or?
Um, I still have a Facebook page just with my own name, which is slightly, now that I think about it, that's kind of weird, is it not? Like, having this like, hey, check out my music. But yeah, there's a there's a page. If you just search Nigel Elliott on Facebook, there's a page on there. I don't post on it that often. There's stuff on there from the wedding band solo stuff or any other kind of work that I've done outside of that. Um, yeah, so you can kind of check that out there.
Okay, well, it's been great chatting to you, Nigel. I'm glad to get you on, and
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. It's been good.
yeah, I have to say thank you to anyone that's been listening, and hopefully we'll see you soon for plenty more guests.